Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Desi TV USA. I am Tabinda Gul. Let's take a look at the very special report. Viewers, American Community Media hosted a national media briefing on Friday, August 15, 2025, focusing on the sweeping impacts of President Donald Trump's recently announced tariff plan. On April 2nd, President Donald Trump declared Liberation Day, signaling his intent to impose tariffs on at least 90 countries. The administration argues that the tariff will generate new revenue and counter what it's called unfair global trading practices. However, questions remain about how the plan will affect American consumer, the labor force, small business, and trade relations with key economics including China, India, Brazil, and Mexico. Viewers, a distinguished panels of experts joined the briefing to provide insight. Dr. Neil Mahoney, director of the Stanford Institute for Economic Policies Research and professor of economics at Stanford University, analyzed the economic dimensions of the tariff strategies. A former White House policy advisor and recipient of the Ashkin Medal in Health Economics, Dr. Mahoney highlighted how tariffs could reshape consumer market and long-term trade relations. Now, Dr. Anil Dilawar, professor of economics and founding dean emeritus of the Universities of California, Riverside Schools of Public Policy, discussed the broader impacts on development and developing economics with extensive experience at the World Bank and as chair of the One Health Trust. Dr. Dilawar emphasized consequences for poverty reductions, education, and public health in emerging markets. Dilawar Syed, former Deputy Administrations of the U.S. Small Business Administration and former Special Envoy for Commercial Affairs at the State Department, spoke about the effect of tariff on small business and global trade diplomacy. Drawing on his experience in disaster response, international negotiations, and entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley, Syed underscored the risk tariffs pose for supply chain and American competitiveness. Now, Marcus Bowers, co-founder of She's Happy Here's and a U.S. Navy veteran, provided the perspective of American entrepreneurs from starting his business with just $800 to building it into an $80 million enterprise. Bowers explains how small and minority owned business may face heightening costs and reduced market access under the tariff. The panelists collectively stressed that while the administrations view tariff as a tool for economic independence, the policies carries far-reaching implications at home and abroad. Now, the discussions concluded that the coming month will be critical in determining whether the US can negotiate favorable terms with global trading partners while safeguarding the interests of American workers and consumers.
I'm Sunita Sarabji, your moderator for today and co-producer of our weekly briefings with my colleague Pilar Marrero. On April 2nd, President Donald Trump announced, quote, Liberation Day, signaling his intent to impose tariffs on at least 90 countries. Trump has said his sweeping tariffs plan will generate revenue while also countering what he calls unfair trading practices. Speakers this week will discuss whether the president can successfully negotiate his tariffs plan, especially in the key economies of China, India, Brazil, and Mexico. Speakers will also discuss the impacts of tariffs for American consumers, the labor force, and small businesses. We have an extremely esteemed group of panelists with us today. Dr. Neil Mahoney, Director of the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research and Professor of Economics at Stanford. Dr. Anil Dilawar, Professor of Economics at the University of California, Riverside, and founding Dean Emeritus of the UC Riverside School of Public Policy.
I am delighted to be here with all of you. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking, like Sunita said, about the impact of tariffs for consumers and for businesses, and also the cooling of the labor market. So tariff pass-through, so the pass-through of these taxes that we charge to consumers and to domestic businesses has been slower than we expected, but we're now seeing the impacts in the hard data, and there's more in the pipeline.
It will increase, will help the U.S. economy. But in the practice, we are seeing that every day the prices of products like avocados and others are rising. I don't see until this moment any benefit. What do you think is really behind this tariff? What Trump is trying to get? Because to the common citizen, to the ordinary citizen like us, we haven't seen any benefit until this point.
I'll briefly touch upon the likely impact of these tariffs on the major emerging economies of China, Brazil, and India. Dr. Mahoney did an excellent job explaining how these tariffs might affect the US economy, US employment, and inflation. Now, I can't be as comprehensive because I want to touch on a number of different topics, but let me start off with that, and then I'll speak on the prospects of tariff negotiations with these major economies. And the reason we are focusing on Brazil, China, and India, these are large emerging economies, some of the most populous countries in the world. They are 3 of the 5 BRICS countries, and they are all middle-income countries, not advanced countries as in Europe and Japan. I don't need to repeat what Dr. Mahoney said, but I was going to offer my first caveat is that we don't really, it's difficult to know exactly how the tariffs are going to impact these economies without knowing where the tariffs will eventually end up. These tariffs have been on again, off again. They have been adjusted up and down over these past 6 months, actually 4 months. So it's difficult to know where they will eventually land. And so one has to take the impact of tariffs on these economies with a grain of salt, because we don't quite know where the tariffs will eventually end up.
Could we go to some of those questions before we end your portion of the discussion?
Okay, let me just quickly go to my bottom line, and that is what is the likelihood of tariff negotiations for these countries. And I would say that both US and China are extremely likely to negotiate a truce on these tariffs, because for both of them, these economies are highly intertwined and interdependent. The impact of very high tariffs on both of these economies will be catastrophic.
President Lula met with Xi Jinping, and obviously Brazil keeps moving more and more towards China as an economic partner, and probably more than an economic partner. Isn't this a major problem for the U.S. in the region, in Latin America? And also, of course, I mean, the animosity of the Trump administration towards Brazil, is it only economic, or is there an ideological component because of the way that the Bolsonaro is facing all kind of legal problems there?
Privileged to be here and to speaking to all of you. We know that small businesses are the heart of U.S. economy. It's a majority of our GDP. They're the largest job creators in our country, and the impact on small businesses has been tremendous when it comes to these tariffs. I'm an entrepreneur. I've run businesses, so I can tell you from my own experience that you need certainty, you need clarity, especially when you are operating a small business. What we have seen with these tariffs, and you've seen and you've heard from my colleagues on this call, the up and down, I don't think anybody can track where these tariffs are. And most small businesses don't have the resources to be able to stay on top of this very abrupt and drastic policy changes. So they clearly have an impact in your ability to plan. They add, one thing that we often don't talk about is they add paperwork. Imagine being a small business and now you have to fill these forms with details about what part of your production is covered by which imported good. You have to hire people. A lot of times we know small businesses, and we have a terrific small business owner on the call today. you're running the business, you're also the customer service officer. The last thing you need is to add more paperwork. And of course, the financial burden that adds, we will talk about that. These stats you heard before, but let me emphasize this. 97% of all importers in the United States are small businesses. 2/3 of small businesses export. So tariffs is a small business problem.
Affect small business that rely on China for manufacturing or supply chains?
We know that a significant percentage of our businesses import from China. And this is both small businesses, but also larger businesses. I think larger businesses often have the ability to plan better by being able to buy goods ahead of time. We saw, as an example, Apple, lift billions of dollars worth of iPhones from India early, or even from China early. A small business cannot do that. They do not have the cash reserves. They don't have the capacity to be able to plan and try to hedge against the impending tariffs. And by the way, the other thing is also, we don't even know what those tariff rates are.
My question is about immigrant businesses. We know most first-generation immigrants are business owners, and some of us. I'm curious to know about if there's any data or any studies being done to assess the impact of these tariffs on small businesses, especially creating them, and what the repercussions could be in the long run, not just for the economy, but for small business immigrant families.
So we know that the rate of entrepreneurship in immigrant communities is disproportionately higher. It's been part of our story as a country. It's not just now. That's how we built this country. We are a nation of immigrants, and immigrants bring with them the drive, the energy, this hunger to create. And I don't think we talk enough about this, that these policies are actually absolutely crushing the drive and the dream that entrepreneurs have who are from immigrant background. Not just in the ways that we've talked about in terms of these, tariffs and what they're doing, but also creating a sense of fear for immigrant communities. But also in terms of what some of the new policies are. For example, SBA, under this administration, has added a rule that you cannot have a non-citizen partner in the business if you're applying for an SBA loan.
Or very important question from Rebecca Bartas before we drop up from you. She's from America Nipsava. Rebecca, please ask your question.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. Do you expect tariff-related cost increases to disproportionately affect minority-owned or rural small businesses? And are there any measures that states can take to mitigate these impacts?
Mr. Syed, thank you so much for your remarks and for your responses to questions. Reporters, we're running about 8 minutes behind schedule, but we hope you'll stick on for our storyteller, Marcus Bowers, who is the co-founder of She's Happy Hair, a small business based in Houston, Texas. Marcus, welcome.
Hi, how you guys doing? Glad to be here.
Yeah. So please tell us a little bit about She's Happy Hair. Start out there. You mentioned when we pre-briefed that, where you get your hair from. Could you talk a little bit about, visiting India and China, and then finally conclude with the impact of these tariffs to your small business?
Yeah, so I like to tell people that I'm a globalpreneur, not an entrepreneur. So I do entrepreneurial things all over the globe, and not just in the city and state that I'm in. So way back in 2012, over a decade ago, we jumped into the beauty supply industry, the hair industry, when there wasn't an industry, and we created one. So when we jumped in, people were just ordering hair online. The beauty supply stores that were open, they weren't considered hair stores. You actually went to those stores for all type of products, not just for hair.
Model, just really learned a lot from your presentation. Your prices went up. Did that adversely impact your ability to sell at scale and volume, or are the customers able to absorb it?
So yes, we rose our prices. The volume, the foot traffic did slow down. our revenue kind of stayed similar because we did increase our prices, got less people coming in, and so it kind of evened out there. We definitely need more foot traffic coming in, and the customers are coming in less. So once a customer may come in 2-3 months at a time, they may extend that to like 4 to 5 months instead. Or when it comes to installations, you know, customers are purchasing their hair, getting their hair put in, and instead of getting it reinstalled, they're just taking the time out and, you know, keeping what they already have. So that's definitely how we're dealing with it.
Gotcha.
Henrietta Burrows from East Palo Alto today has the next question. Henrietta.
Thanks, Sunita. Marcus, what about automation? You said workers aren't going to want to do the actual day-to-day, minute work. So what about automation and AI? Could all of this be used?
Yes, and it will be. And I think over in China, they got, manless factories and things like that. They're a little ahead of us when it comes to the new factories. And I think when the new factories do come back, they're not going to come back like they were. So the way that we used to go to work with the hard hats and the steel toe boots at the factories, I don't think it's going to be that. It's going to be way more robotics, way more automation. I'm an instrumentation engineer, so I know how to deal with things here remotely and troubleshoot things, you know, without even actually being on property. And so I think a lot of engineers are going to have opportunities.
Yeah, fantastic discussion. Thank you to all our speakers and reporters today. And we'll see you next Friday.
So viewers, thank you for watching and thank you for supporting. This is me, Tavinda, signing off. Stay tuned for more news. Desi TV USA, DTV NN, and our OTT platform, DTV Flix, where you can access to over 3,000 channels. So stay tuned and stay with us.
Now I am American. I have citizen.
I still have my Salvadorian passport and now I have my USA passport. I am a citizen of the US.
Khi cầm cái hộ chiếu Mỹ, cô rất là tự hào mình là công dân Mỹ.
La ciudadanía para mí significa oportunidades.
Si ya tienen el tiempo que pueden hacerse ciudadanas, que lo hagan.
No pierde nada uno con intentarlo.
Como dicen en México, echándole ganas, todo se puede.
Neurological care is a pressing healthcare challenge in Pakistan. That's why Helping Hand USA is building Kind R, a world-class hospital with 130 plus clinics that is set to establish new standards for neurological care in Pakistan. As the first phase nears completion, anticipation is growing for the launch in the second half of 2025. Give zakat and sadaqah through Helping Hand USA today and join this historic endeavor to redefine future healthcare in Pakistan.